Hey, welcome to this episode of Let's Talk About Fatherlessness. My name is Sean Teis. I'm your host, and I'm excited to have our guest today, Jake Freels. Jake and I met years ago. I think it was 2011. We were both working for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, FCA. We met each other at the home office at the training, and just an amazing friendship since then. But I'm excited to just have you on, man. Would you just tell us about yourself, tell us about your ministry, just whatever you want to share?
Yeah, man, Sean, just so good to get to catch up with you. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We were sitting in that FCA office, and all of a sudden you pull out a pamphlet talking about fatherlessness. I think that was like your very first ever book and your very first ever pamphlet, man, when it came out. And I was like, dude, this guy's going to change the game, I was like, this is freaking amazing, you know?
Yeah, I
But
left FCA because I tried to get FCA to do stuff for fatherless athletes, and it was just I'm like, I just need to. I was already doing Life Factors too, and I was like, I just need to go do Life Factors. I just need to go.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, and I think, you and I had a lot of conversations about fatherlessness and that, over those trainings. And, as you know, I mean, I lost my dad when I was young and lived a life that most fatherless kids live. And, until I had that face-to-face encounter with the father of all, so that he's the one that changes everything.
yeah. Now, would you tell us about your ministry? So you were working for FCA. Then what did you do after that?
Yeah. So then we ended up started planting churches and on college campuses and reaching the next generation. And then I was also doing crusades and evangelism events and stadium events and things like that. And we were just trying to make a difference and make an impact. And we did that for a while. And then recently, in the last 6 years, the Lord had moved me back to my hometown in Stephenville, Texas. And so we've been running after the heart of the next generation there, through churches, through outreaches, and again, through just connecting one-on-one with people and introducing them to the Father. And so that's just what we've been up to. Now we run a men's ministry as well, and we do trips all around the country, and from elk hunting trips to fly fishing trips to camping trips to, just get out in creation and let God speak to us and, revitalize our hearts. Or, there's nothing like sitting in the arms of the Father. I mean, it's, he does that so many times when we're out in the middle of the wilderness, man. And that's part of it. I'm actually in a house right now that we bought to run men's trips out of, on the Brazos River in Glen Rose, Texas. And so we just finished a trip this week. And man, we just went out and fly fished and hunted pigs and then just sat and talked around a table for hours and hours and hours and let God love on us, and sit in his arms. I mean, at the end of the day, if we can't sit in his arms and know that he loves us, then everything else is just like being an orphan running around. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so our highest priority is to be in the arms of the Father, no matter what it is, whether we're running businesses, whether we're running ministries, because we run a business, we have businesses as well. And it doesn't matter. It's all ministry.
yeah.
Let's just go ahead and say that it's all ministry because people are ministry. And so, it just comes down to, man, are we going to sit in his arms and let him love on us?
Yeah, and one thing I've always loved about you since we met years ago was your energy, man. You just have this energy about you, and I appreciate that. I saw you. I think it was there, 2019. We were at your church. You were at the Cowboy Church there at Stephenville. You were the youth pastor, and
Yep.
I got to share our ministry a little bit, and just it was a great time. Kids got to ride horses on your ranch, and it was just a fun time, man. Now, you grew up in Stephenville. Tell us. We're talking about fatherlessness, so tell us
Yeah.
more about your story. With your situation with your dad.
Yeah. So, grew up in Stephenville, Texas, and I had to leave it to Beaver family, and if you're not in your 30s or older, you don't even know what that is, anyways. But that was a family that was just picture perfect, man. It was like, the idealistic family in America. We had, I had 3 older brothers and sisters. My mom and dad, they all loved Jesus, and we'd have events and gatherings at our house with people all the time, and it's just a fun atmosphere. My dad would take us on adventures all the time. I mean, it was kind of like the epic home to live in my opinion, in every way, shape, and form. But one of the things we did was we team roped together, which in the rodeo world, that means one person rides a horse and ropes the steer's horns, and one rides a horse and ropes his legs, and that's a sport. So that's what we did as a family for fun. And so I entered in my very first ever team roping with my dad. We were in a town about 30 miles away from my hometown. And we stepped out and did like the crescendo moment, like here I am, 9 years old, roping with my dad, competing for money and all this stuff. It was just like you're doing the deal, and it's one of those days where I'll never forget, and it was an awesome day. And then we get in the truck that night, head on our way home. Those ropings get done late at night. It was around midnight, and we got about probably 15 minutes down the road. I fell asleep in my mom's lap. We were in a Ford four-door truck, bench seat in the front, bench seat in the back, no seat belts. And I fall asleep in my mom's lap. And the next thing I know, I wake up in a burning truck. Windshield shattered, and there's flames coming through. And I'm like, what in the world? I turn around, look at my mom, my dad. They're picture perfect. They're flawless. I look at my two older brothers. They're flawless. My sister wasn't in the car. And I'm like, what is going on? Next thing I know, I turn around and look back towards the right, and a guy picks me up and carries me and lays me on the side of the road. And I look back over, and I can see I was in a burning truck. What had happened is that a young man coming out of our hometown was full of so much anxiety, pain, stress from losing one of his brothers that same night. That was the anniversary night. That he just didn't think life mattered anymore, and it was too much for him. And so he actually swerved and hit us head on at over 100 miles an hour. So he hits us so hard that, his engine merges into our truck and all that. And I mean, it was a crazy. His engine block was 300 feet down the road. I mean, it was a massive impact. But the cool thing about the Lord and all this is that where I was sitting when I woke up, I wasn't sitting. I was actually hanging out the back window from when I was told. And I literally, the Lord had taken me out of my body, put me in the front seat of the truck, and shown me a picture of my family, flawless in first person. But in all reality, my dad had snapped his neck and died instantly beside me. My mom had hit the front dashboard and the windshield and broke most of her bones in her face. Her nose was shattered. Her back was broken, and her leg was pinned under the engine, broken and shattered. My brother behind me had hit the truck and concaved, hit his head on the concave spot, split him from his eyebrow to the middle of his skull, split him wide open. And he was dead in cardiac arrest behind me. And I don't see any of that. I mean, I literally saw them picture perfect. And so I didn't know this as a 9-year-old boy, but what God was showing me in that moment, in the most tragic, chaotic moment of my life, when I entered into fatherlessness that night, he was there. And he showed me his perfection. He showed me his love. He showed me how I could see from his viewpoint where no matter what pain we're in, no matter what dysfunction we're in, no matter how bad it is, we can be seen as picture perfect in the eyes of the Father. Why? Because of Jesus' blood. When we commit our lives to Jesus, when we say we want you, when it says that we are white as snow, yet our sin was red as crimson, but now we're white as snow, like that's real. And that we're seen in the perfection of Jesus, not what we can do, but what Jesus can do, And so I saw that as a 9-year-old boy in that moment, but I didn't know that, I didn't realize everybody was the way they were until I woke up the next day in the hospital. My face was split. My left leg was broken. And I woke up in the hospital, and there's hundreds of people in the hospital. They wheel me down. I go into my mom's room. She's bandaged from head to toe. My uncle's standing there. He pulls me aside and he says, "Hey, son," he goes, "I need you to know that your dad's dead." They wheel me out of there, wheel me into my brother's room. He's in a coma. They'd already revived him multiple times, brought him back to life, and now he's in a coma. And he's just sitting there like stitches everywhere, blood's everywhere still. And then they wheel me out of there into a car and take me back home to a house that was never the same ever again. And so I went from this picture perfect family to a living nightmare, to be honest, for the next 9 years in different ways. Yeah. And so, man, I went through a journey of losing my identity, and not knowing what to do, going into sexual identity stuff that just got confusing as heck. Then went into, living off of performance and performing for everybody in sports because I was good at sports. And so I got all my accolades through trophies and championships and broken records and all that kind of stuff. And then it went from women to drugs to alcohol to you name it. I mean, I did every statistic a fatherless kid does, everything that should have put me in prison, fights, you name it. And yet none of it satisfied. What I was just yearning for was the consistency of a father again. I was yearning for a dad to tell me he loved me, he was loving me, and that he's proud of me, no matter what I did, no matter anything. I just wanted to be accepted. I just wanted to be loved, and be a part of a family that was a loving family. And so, through all of that, I was going to commit suicide and hit an 18-wheeler head on with my truck, same way that kid died. And that night I went to turn the steering wheel. I had 3 friends in the truck and I was going to kill all 3 of them too. And it's because, you get into these moments and nothing matters but you, right? Nothing matters but your pain, your dysfunction, your brokenness, all of it. That's the only thing you can see. And when I just was like, man, I'm so done. I can't do this anymore. I just inherited a bunch of money. I bought houses as an 18-year-old kid and that didn't fix it. I was dating different girls. Every girl was different. None of them fixed it. Just all of it. None of it fixed it. And so I was like, I'm done, And I remember I was about to turn the wheel and I heard this still quiet voice in my head. It wasn't like a booming, like, hey, jerk. It was just like right in the still quietness of my mind. You don't want to do this. And I just, everything in me was like, I want to do this. Like, you don't get it. Like, this life sucks, man. I don't want it. And I sat there for, who knows how long it was, maybe 2 seconds, but it was just like, you know what? I don't want to do this. And I just had enough time to respond. And it's like something froze me to the steering wheel. It was like, I don't know if an angel came in there and held me. I don't know what happened, but something happened where I could not move that wheel anymore. And that 18-wheeler passed by and I was scared to death. It was like, holy cow, dude, I was seriously going to do it. Like, didn't tell nobody, no red flags. Nobody knew. I mean, I was that kid. I was one of the most popular kids in school. I was, I had this stuff. I was driving the nicest truck in the parking lot, like out of everybody, like I was the last guy that you would have thought would have committed suicide in high school. But yet I was, and I was there. And so shortly after that, I was like, okay, God, why do you have me here? Like, I knew who Jesus was. I mean, I grew up going to church and I went to church off and on throughout all this, but I didn't know any more than Jesus saved me and some dude in a boat, floated and a rainbow came out one day, like stuff like that. Like I didn't really know the nuts and bolts of what God says about me and who I am and who he is. And so I went on a journey, man, and went searching in college and ran into some dudes that just radically loved Jesus. And they weren't fake. They weren't double-sided and all this craziness, and they were just real as it got. And I got so attracted to how real it was to them. I was like, dude, I'll do whatever it takes to have what they have, and they started talking to me about the power of the Holy Spirit and how he can change your life and how you can really dive into him. And I was like, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I just know Jesus died on the cross for me. I didn't realize I had the same power that rose Jesus from the dead. Like, I had access to that thing, you know what I mean? And so I just dipped in, man, and I just went all head in running after Jesus and went on a mission trip to Spain. And here I was on an island that hadn't been ministered to in 100 years. These people had never heard the name of Jesus before, from what we'd understood through the missionaries. And I thought, holy cow, I'm living what the Bible's talking about. But it hadn't become real to me yet until I was on top of a mountain, probably 5,000 foot up, looking at the ocean straight down. And I was just like, man, like, I'm halfway across the world and God is just as real over here as he is in America. And I'm telling people about him that've never heard about him. Like, how am I even doing this right now? And I went down to the dinner table that night, sat at the dinner table, and it's just like this presence was overwhelming me. Something was like, I can't explain it, but it's like a lead weight when you go to like the dentist and they put that lead weight on top of, like there was a presence, and I could not understand it until I'm sitting at that dinner table. And all I can explain is it was almost like a wind or a something just like blew through my soul, blew through my chest. And it's like everything disappeared. Like all my pain, my anxiety, my frustration, like all this stuff just started melting out of me. And it was like this joy and this peace and love. And like, I didn't even know how to explain it. It felt like somebody shot me with adrenaline, and I'm just like, what the heck is this? Just at the end of we're all eating dinner, dude. It's not like we were at like some crazy event or something. Like no music was playing. Like I wasn't getting this like crazy emotional high off of something. We were eating dinner. And then all of a sudden, I just feel like these arms, tangible arms, something hold me. And I hear that same voice that I heard that night in the truck, and it was the same one. He says, I love you. You're my son. I want you to do this the rest of your life. And dude, I'm like, I just wanted to tell everybody at the table, like, you have no idea what just happened to me. But I was crying so hard, like I'm sobbing, like snot rockets. Like I'm talking sobbing. I'm crying so hard because I thought if God was going to tell me anything truly, that he's going to tell me he hated me. Like, I genuinely thought that he wanted nothing to do with me. I was just this used up piece of trash, done run everybody through the mud, led so many people astray, you name it. Just all of that. My sin was ever before me. And yet the very thing is opposite. He just sat there and held me and told me he loved me. And it broke everything in me. And man, I found the tangible presence of his Holy Spirit that night. And I read my Bible, and it's like I felt like the freaking words were flying off the page, landing in my heart, and I'm just like, holy freaking cow, like this is amazing, I like literally, I remember my highlighter never left the page. So it's like, I literally just kept that sucker going the whole time I was reading. And I was like, okay, this is not practical. It's like I'm highlighting my entire freaking Bible right now. But it was so like, it was so real, like it was so tangible. It became live and active and sharp and like, whoa. And dude, once you get held in the Father's arms, or once you have this moment with Jesus where you realize that he loves you, he paid for your sin, he doesn't hold it against you, like he just wants to encounter you, he wants a relationship with you, and just be overwhelmed by that. Wow, man, it changes the game like forever, and that set me on a trajectory of like a whole new path, a whole new world. I lived 18 years, the other way, and I've lived another 18 years this way. And man, dude, I couldn't trade it for the world. You couldn't offer me enough money for it. You couldn't offer me enough fame, whatever. I don't care what. You couldn't offer me anything to take what he's given me. You know what I mean? Like it's like that real. It's just something you'll never. Once you taste and see and know that he's good, and you abide in him, golly, you don't want anything else. And so, people always ask me, what's the antidote to fatherlessness? It's Jesus.
Yes.
It's Jesus, and it's his loving arms. It's the Father's embrace. That's it. Like, that's it. And then we have to actually step up to the plate and start being a father, and helping others come into their own identity, helping others become the men that God calls us to be, and the sons that he calls us to be, and all of that. Like, now we have to step up to the plate and be Jesus in the flesh to help and be a part of the solution, that's just what my heart's been running after for the last 18 years. Like, Lord, would you just put that one boy, the boy that killed my dad, same boy that I was, would you just keep putting one of those in front of me?
That's good.
I just want one. We don't got to reach thousands and millions all the time or think about it, or, maybe one day. No, it can maybe be the kid sitting in a class next to you. It can maybe be the teacher. It can maybe be the coach, or it maybe is the kid down the street from you, your next door neighbor, the kid at the grocery store, Or just like just a minute ago, I was in an archery shop shooting archery, getting ready for some bow fishing that we're doing on the river. And, guy comes walking in today and just broken and hurting. And I'm like, Lord, what do you want me to do right now? He's like, go ask him if you can pray for him. I don't know the guy from Adam, but I'm like, hey, I don't know if you have a faith background, but, he started sharing he had a brain aneurysm possibly, and the doctors are going to do all this analysis. And he goes, I basically kind of got a death wish today. And I was like, man, how about you get a life wish today? How about let's breathe some life into this moment right now? It's like, let's just pray. Let's just ask Jesus, the healer, the miracle worker himself, to be with us. And that's it. And it's simple things like that. We don't have to go to seminary to become a life giver to other people around us. We don't have to go to seminary to be able to just be a father to the fatherless or loving others around us. Like the Bible's just really clear about that. Like just look at other people, consider them better than yourself, and be encouraging to them, but that's all we can boil it down to. Every young man, every boy, you and I know this, every one of us are starving for affection and love and acceptance from another male to just tell who we are.
So true.
It's just simple. It's simple. I think we just complicate the heck out of it, man. I do it all the time too. I'm guilty of it, but if you boil it, practical, it's what we're looking for.
What are some practical things for people that are listening to this? For a guy, so you're working with guys that were like you as a teenager. What are some practical things that you implement if you start working with a guy like right at the beginning to kind of break the ice? Because sometimes teenagers, they're just like, I don't want to work. I don't want to talk to anybody. What's some practical advice you have for people that are trying to help kids?
Man, I'd say this: encouragement breaks the walls of rejection, right? So if you're encouraging somebody and loving on them, telling them, just amazing things about them, or man, that immediately starts breaking down the walls of I want to reject you, right?
Yeah.
So the fastest way to repel somebody is to come and speak at them, okay? And to, this, you need this, you need that, you need this, you need that. That's the fastest way to repel someone that's younger than you specifically, right? Especially a fatherless kid, right? Because I don't want to hear none of that. Don't come away with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you love me? The saying is you don't care how much somebody knows until you know how much they care. Like that's the saying, right? We all talk about all the time. So what I love to do is I sit down and ask a lot of questions, and just get to know somebody, listen 10 times more than I speak. I love to encourage a lot and just speak a lot of encouragement and belief into somebody. And then the other side of it is just find something you both like to do or something they've never done and go do it. Like that's why we hunt and fish and four-wheeling in the backcountry and riding horses and you name it. Like I'm just going, if you've never done it, you want to do it and I can do it with you. Come on, let's go right now. Like I'm going to take you right now. Or what's something you love to do and I want to come watch you do it. Like I want to be a part of watching you do what you're great at. And I'm going to tell you how great you are. You know what I mean? And whether you suck royally, you know what I'm saying? Like to the world standards, like we can't do that. We can't go in there. We can just go in there and love the heck out of somebody, be a super encourager. And that begins to break the walls down, right? So that we actually begin to have a heart-to-heart connection. And it's not like me tell you what to do. I'm your mentor, so I'm going to mentor you and all this stuff. That's great. And that was what it'll morph into, that you can become a mentor or a father figure to somebody. But they got to know you love them. And if they don't know you love them, then they don't care. I'm telling you, specifically the fatherless world, there's so much rejection, hurt, pain, fear involved with it that, man, it's just, you got to break through all that with love first, and let all the other stuff be secondary as it comes out, but that's relationship, that's spending time. I mean, that's just, there's no other way around it than face-to-face interaction time, and being present. Like my wife and I, we open up our home all the time. We have people in our home all the time and just sit down, eat a meal. Like you want to go really simple, just have a meal together. Like that's it, and just be present. Don't have your phone out, don't be scrolling through. Don't tell them how awesome you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't sit there and tell them a whole bunch of stories about how great you are because you're insecure, trying to, get them to like you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm just being serious, being real, like that. We do that all the time. We get out of these meetings and we're so insecure as men. that we can't even be present and talk about them or encourage them, because we're so insecure about our own self. And so it's like, hey, just throw that to the side. They don't care about how great you are. They don't care if you broke a bunch of records. They don't care if you own millions of dollars. What they really care about is, do you love them? Bottom line, right there. You know what I'm saying? And if they know that, then man, they'll jump in all 4 feet, like I say. They'll be on their hands and knees. They're coming out now. It's game on. So that, and then get in the Word together. Start breaking down just parts of the Bible. Start in the book of John. It's one of the greatest books to start in if you want to start talking spiritual talk. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. I'm going to tell you this right now, right? You don't have to have all the answers. YouTube has a lot of them. They're great. Okay, go to YouTube if you don't got the answers. If you don't have YouTube, then you're living underneath a rock somewhere. But if you don't have the answers, it's okay. Like, I think that's what we're so afraid of as mentors or trying to be a father figure is, what if they ask me, whatever, did dinosaurs become before Jesus or Jesus before dinosaurs? You know what I mean? Like, what do I do with that? Well, ask somebody or go Google it and say, hey, great idea. I've never actually researched that before. Let's do it together. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know. I think doing some of those practical steps of creating relationship, heart-to-heart connection is what goes farther than anything that I've seen.
Okay. That's great. Now you've mentioned about being a husband, being a dad. What are some things that you have learned, because you had a dad growing up for how many years? When did he pass away? What year was that? You're 9 years old. So what are some things that you've seen as a husband and as a father that you've had to learn? Because there's a lot of struggles there a lot of times, because when you had a dad up to you were 9. What are some things that you've seen that you've had to kind of relearn or things like that as a husband and as a dad?
Everything. No. I think in the realest sense, I try and get around people and watch and model, right? Yeah. So I've got 4 or 5 different men in my life that are older than me, a lot older than me, that, I ask them a lot of questions. I see how they parent their kids. I read tons of books. I talk with my peers about how they're raising their kids. And then I go to the Father and I get in the Word and I figure out what the Lord says about me and how He talks to me. And that's how I should talk to my kids. Right. So, I think it's so many facets. I don't think there's a one-way track. I don't think there's just this narrow path of becoming this excellent dad. I think it's in humility. You humble yourself and you ask a lot of people for help. And they're all going to have different opinions and different ways they raise their kids. But man, fruit is fruit, and if you get to see people that have, some incredible kids around them and you wonder how they did it, or they've got some kids that run off and go on their own way because everybody's an individual at the end of the day, and you tell them how they're working through it. But, in all of it, humility leads the way. Like, there's so many times, this is something that I do with my kids all the time is, man, I'll ask my own kids for forgiveness, or I'll say, I'm sorry for how I talked to you today, or I shouldn't have treated you that way. Like, I think there's so much of that. We get this model of dads of, you go out, go make the money, come home, go do your hobbies and disappear, right? Or whatever it is, that's the model we see out there in the world, work, get the American dream, come home, live your lifestyle, and tuck the kids in bed, versus taking your kids along the journey with you and everything you're doing. When you get home and going on adventures with them, encountering them in new ways and finding out what they love and doing it with them. And, the same principles apply even in your own house and your own kids, and creating a safe place, creating a place that they want to be. But that all comes back to us as men having to go through our own struggles and battles to find out what does that mean for us. So, I think some practicals are, I date my daughters. I take my boys on trips together and I take my daughters on trips. And the biggest thing is that, we do things together. So we eat meals together, we make decisions together. Like, anytime I've made a decision to move or change careers, my kids have had say in all of it.
Yeah.
And my kids, and my kids have actually been the ones that'll actually give me the permission to do what we do next. And sometimes that works. Obviously, not everybody has the same situation, and not everybody can do it the same. But man, I want my kids to be involved in our life and in our decisions and in what we do and how we do it, so that they're actually learning as they come along with us, and they're a part of our family. Like, we're one unit. We are together in this, and we're doing our best to do it together. So Dad's not out there to do it all on his own and go figure it all out and come home and you're so stressed that you just binge on stuff, whatever it is for you to binge on, and check out. But instead, being able to check that stuff at the door, and be present when you get home. Man, we just need to be able to be present when we get home, and that's hard to do sometimes. But it's worth it. It's worth it big time.
That's awesome, man. Now we have about 5 minutes left. I just wanted to ask you about your mom, your sister. Like, how did they overcome? I mean, how, if you don't mind me asking that,
Yeah.
how did they handle the situation?
Well, it was super tough, man. I mean, my sister had to grow up overnight. She was a 17-year-old. I believe she was 17 at the time. And she's taking care of me and my mom. And I mean, my mom went through surgeries forever. My mom didn't handle it well in the beginning, and that emotionally just wrecked her. And it took her, every bit of 10 years to actually come out of that. My mom went through deep, dark pain, suicide, just lots of stuff. I mean, that's just today I wouldn't tell you. I know how I'd do it, or I'd know how I'd encounter all that, man. That was a lot. And then now that she loves Jesus and we all live on the same ranch together, and, we've totally all come back together and are doing some awesome stuff together, and getting to do life together again now here, all these years later. And so God's totally restored everything. He's restored her. He's restored our relationship. He's restored our life, and my sister in the middle of it all, is on her own same journey of she's being restored, and she's doing amazing, incredible things now. And she's building orphanages around the world, hospital clinics around the world for orphans. And I mean, she's doing incredible stuff, so it's like, it's cool to see, in spite of the tragedy and in spite of the brokenness of fatherlessness, we've all ended up coming into an own place where, man, God's still present and God's still doing stuff, and using our family in a really cool way. But it comes through, man, struggle and trials and all that stuff, but just not giving up. I just tell people all the time, just don't give up.
Yeah.
Life is extremely fun and amazing, but it can be extremely painful and discouraging. And I went through a lot of those years, and there's still years that it can still face it. Like, we still face trials and pain today, so it's not void of it. But when you're in the Father's arms, and I'm going to say this is what I want to close on. Like, if you're in the Father's arms, nothing else matters. Yeah. And if you can't get in that place, man, ask somebody that knows how. You know what I'm saying? Just say, Father, I want to be held in your arms. Would you make this real to me? And if you've never given your life to Jesus, then you have no ability to be in his arms. Like, he can't hold you in his arms unless you come through Jesus. And when you say, Jesus, I need you to save me and give me a way to the Father. And man, it's like, you're right in his arms, man. And that's what Jesus does. He paves the way for us to be able to be embraced by the Father. And he becomes the true Father of fathers to us, and then he'll bring all these amazing people around us. That's called the body. And we get to learn and love each other along the way, but that's the biggest thing I would say out of all this is being able to rest in his arms, know that you're loved, and know that you're amazing, know that you have everything you need through the power of the Holy Spirit to overcome anything, your addictions, your failures, your fears, your doubts, condemnation, all of that. The love of Jesus and the power of the Holy Spirit can give you any way out of any of that. And I was the deepest, darkest one in it. So if I can do it, you can do it.
That's so good, man. I appreciate you wrapping up with that. That's awesome. As we close, would you tell us where to find you? Tell us a little more about your Freels design. I mean, you're doing houses now. Tell us where to find you.
Yeah, man. You can find me a little bit on Facebook and Instagram. At, Freels Designs is our construction company. But go to Jake and Sarah Freels and Facebook. You can go to Jake Freels or Jake_Freels, Freels. I'm on Instagram. I'm not on social media as much anymore, man. I just, I'm living life with the person in front of me. So if you wanna get in touch with me through email, you can email me at jake@heartofmanycolors.com, heartofmanycolors.com. And that's another way you can get a hold of me. If you need prayer or you need something, man, you can reach out to me that way. But that's it, man. That's pretty much who I am. And I'm just so glad to be here with you, Sean. I'm so glad that what you're doing is changing the world. And you're incredible, dude. And I'm just stoked to be your friend.
I am too, man. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for being on with us today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks.
To learn more about how you can get involved in Fatherless Family Ministry, visit lifefactors.org, where you can find some free resources. You can find our books that we have. You can find even the program that we have to help you start a single mom ministry within your ministry or within your church. We can all work together to lead fatherless families to the Heavenly Father.